Hi, welcome to this video. My name is Rhianna and today I'm going to talk about 5 short stories that could change your life. So I love a short story. I love how they can have such a profound impact on you within such a short space of time. And these 5 short stories that I'm going to talk about today are probably my 5 favourite short stories, and I think are short stories that I think about a lot as I go through the world, as I live my life. And each of them as well, I think, has a central theme, a central idea that it's exploring. So yeah, let's talk about them a bit. So the first short story is The King by Eliza Clark, and I think the main idea that this short story is exploring is absurdism. So this short story is about an alien man who works in a corporate job, and the world then ends and he then rules over a human society in a post-apocalyptic theme park. And the story is written in a really relaxed and fun way. It's so enjoyable to read. And I do love it when a story doesn't take itself too seriously and it is just really fun. And as I said, leans into the absurdism of life. I think life can often feel quite serious. And although sometimes you do need to approach situations with a sincerity, I think approaching life too seriously can be quite detrimental to your soul. And sometimes you do need to just view life as kind of silly and crazy, like no one knows why we're here, what's going on, we're just trying our best. And I think this story reminded me of that, and I often think of it. And this short story is from the collection She's Always Hungry by Eliza Clark. And my favourite quote from the story is, "I get that humans low-key love to be subjugated, but I honestly didn't understand why they hadn't overthrown Golden yet." The next short story I want to talk about is The Resident by Carmen Machado. This is from her collection Her Body and Other Parties. And the main idea that this story is circulating, I think, is that of introspection, looking into the past and seeing how what you experienced in the past has affected you in the future. And I think it's also looking at being a creative person, which I think everyone is. I think even if you're much more into like science, for example, or engineering, or even if you don't really read or don't view yourself as a creative person, I think everyone is just being a human. Everyone daydreams to some extent or uses their imagination to deal with the difficulty of life. And this short story is about a woman who goes to a writer's retreat in the mountains, and it's really like unsettling and weird and has just the vibes and the atmosphere is just really specific. And I feel like this short story maybe affected me as much as if I had actually gone to this writer's retreat in real life. I often think about it and it always feels like that was an experience that I had. And a quote I liked is, "Many people live and die without ever confronting themselves in the darkness. Pray that one day you will spin around at the water's edge, lean over and be able to count yourself among the lucky." The next short story is So Lit in the Day by Keegan. I listened to this on audiobook, and I think Keegan's books work so well in audiobook form. They're so calming. Like some audiobooks I find like a bit sometimes like noisy and maybe like disruptive, but I found this story, it was just so gentle and peaceful to listen to, and so I definitely recommend listening to her work on audiobook. She also read the audiobook that I listened to, and she's a great audiobook narrator as well. And this short story is about a man. He's going about his quite lonely day and he starts to think about a previous relationship that he had, the good parts and also the bad parts. And I think the central theme that it is exploring is that of regret, but like quiet regret, how regret can seep into you throughout the quiet moments of living. The short story also looks at misogyny, like misogyny that is quiet. Like some misogyny can be really loud, you know, that of the manosphere. That misogyny is like very explicit and clear. Those people who don't like women. But in this short story, it's looking at how a man can be misogynistic, but that's kind of he does it in a quiet way throughout the relationship, and you don't necessarily see it so loudly. Then a line from something he'd read somewhere came to him to do with endings, about how if things have not ended badly, they have not ended. The next short story is The Lottery by Shirley. I would say this is one of the most famous short stories out there. I think maybe if you Google short stories that I should read, this might come up. And I think that's because it really is very affecting. I think the central idea that it's exploring is how unjust life can be, how unfair it can be, and also about how tradition can continually be implemented even if it's not beneficial or helpful in any way. And I think this story is best going in knowing nothing. I really think the reason it's so famous is because of how surprising it is, and the more you say about it, the less surprising it's going to be, because you might be able to guess what the story is about and what happens at the end. And I like the beginning of the story because it is a bit of a juxtaposition, and it says, the morning of June 27th was clear and sunny with the fresh warmth of a full summer day. The flowers were blossoming profusely and the grass was richly green. Okay, now I'm going to talk about my favourite short story that I've ever read, and that is Bloodchild by Octavia Butler. And this short story is actually free to read on the internet. If you Google the short story, you'll be able to find it. It's also free on Kindle, which is how I read it. And then I enjoyed it so much, I bought the collection, which has like other short stories by her too. And I love this short story because of how imaginative it is. I read it once and then read it again immediately, because the first time you read it, I think it's quite hard to grasp everything that's going on. And then when you read it the second time, the third time, the fourth time, new things are revealed to you. And I think it's so impressive to write a story. You can just read again and again and again, and you're like gaining new things from it every time that you read it. For a short story, it's so packed full of ideas. I also think it isn't circling or exploring one central idea. There is a really great afterword where Octavia E. Butler is writing about why she wrote the story and what she wanted it to mean. And there's a few ideas that she has. And one of them is that she writes, I tried to write a story about paying the rent. I think that's a great interpretation, that the story is about paying rent. She also writes about how she is frightened of something called the botfly, and the botfly lays its eggs in wounds left by the bites of other insects. And she says how if she's frightened of something, she'll often write a story about it to deal with the fear. And I think that's so beautiful. And what is the story about? Well, I think it's best to just read it. I mean, it's about a boy on an alien planet, and that's what I think is best to know, because I think, yeah, part of the joy is reading it and being like, what is going on, and trying to like uncover the mystery of the story. Okay, so those are five short stories which I feel have changed my life, and I hope if you read them, they will have a positive impact on you too. If you have any other short story recommendations, please let me know. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye bye.